Basically, my late father was a distributor. He had a company called Miracle Films, which in the 60s and 70s, early 80s, distributed a lot of foreign language films like Marriage of Mira Brown and Lola, and a lot of sex films in the 70s, like Yellow Emmanuel, and etc. And My Swedish Fanny Hill. And I loved what he did, and I wanted to come into the business. So I went to college. And then when I was 18, nearly 19, I went to live in Paris for a year and worked for 20th Century Fox as a runner, learning French in the mornings. When that year was finished, I came back to the UK, and my father got me some interviews with United Artists at the time, and with what then became UIP, what was CIC in the 80s. My first meeting was with the United Artists one morning, 8:30 in the morning, which went very well, with a guy called Maurice Young, who was a legend. And then I met later that day with a guy called Alfie Jarrett, who was then managing director of CIC. Yeah. Alfie was Australian, very nice man, and he was a very good friend of my late father, my mother. And I got on like a house on fire with him. And he basically said to me that I've got the job, because we got on so well. But his exact words were to me, I'll give you 6 weeks, if you fuck up, you're out. And I stayed there about 3 years. And my first job was in the publicity and marketing department. And in charge of that department was a guy called Leslie Pound, and Leslie was just leaving to go to what was Lou Gray's company, ITC, and Lou's nephew, Ian Freeman, joined us at CIC and became my boss. And then I spent a year going around the various departments, the booking department, the accounting department. Then they sent me to the international division, which was at that time next to the Hard Rock in Piccadilly, which I think is now Eon's offices. And I spent a year in the international division, and after that year they shipped me off to South America. So I spent a year in Chile learning Spanish. I ran the cinema in the evenings there in Santiago, and just really learned international distribution. And then after a year, unfortunately, Alfie died, and so they brought me back to the UK. I spent another 2 years with UIP, which was fun. And then at that time, the sales director that my father had left to go to what was EMI in those days, and so I joined my father. And then the first film I released with him in 1986 was the Care Bears movie. And then from the Care Bears movie, we then in late 86, early 1987, we became consultants to what was a company called Vestron, and we set up a company called Vestron Pictures. And so in 1987 we released films like Dirty Dancing, we did Princess Bride, Young Guns, Buster. So I released some big major films. Then in 1990 they went into administration, and then we got taken over by HTV Television, and we changed the name of the company to First Independent Films. And we had films like Misery and City Slickers. I mean, films like Dumb and Dumber we bought at Script Stage. So, you know, released a lot of big films in that period of time. And then in 1999 the company got sold to United News and Media, Lord Hollick's company, and he didn't really want to keep the distribution rights. We actually had a film which I bought at Script Stage and actually gone to the set of the movie in the Isle of Man called Waking Ned Devine. But in the end we gave that to Fox, and I left the company, and then I set up my own business under Miracle Communications, basically releasing films, distributing films, and doing airline sales for various clients. And First Independent actually became one of my clients, because although they paid me off and, you know, they were honourable to all the directors and staff at that time, they then realised they had to bring me back on board, because there were films that I'd bought and acquired that needed to be theatrically released. So that really kick-started what I do now. So basically what I do now, I work for a number of clients, I release their films theatrically. I book the cinemas. I do all the collections. I organise the posters, trailers for the cinemas. I look after a number of clients. I do their airline rights, a couple of big clients. I do television sales for a number of people, and I'm actually just produced my first film in the States, just wrapped last week. On the verge of producing 2 more low-budget horror films this year, and I'm producing a £1 million movie as well later this year. If you sell the film to a mainstream distributor, if they offer you a lot of money, that's great, and you most probably should take it. But if what they're offering you is not what you're expecting, then coming my route is kind of interesting, because everything is, I kind of say it's in 3 different boxes. So my box is theatrical. We spend the P&A, we release the film. If it works, all that revenue goes back to the producer directly. I can then help them set up a DVD deal. I can then help set up airlines and digital deals. And then all that income stream, whereas with a distributor, sometimes they cross all the rights. And because they're paid in advance and they're spending P&A money, they have to recoup all that money first. So the chances are you won't see money for a few years. My route, you'll see the money will come through to you much faster. In terms of marketing PR, there's a number of companies I work with a company called Organic Marketing. I work with Porter Frith, but I also work with a company called ThinkJam as well. And ThinkJam is purely online marketing PR, and they're fantastic at what they do. And I think it's important today, because I don't believe lots of the young people, the 15 to 25-year-old, which is the key cinema-going audience, read reviews in papers. It's what their friends are saying to them. It's their social media sites. It's Facebook. It's Twitter. I think maybe Instagram, but I think Facebook and Twitter are massive for the kids. I'm on Facebook all the time. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I am. I mean, my kids are on. So I think it's very important from a social aspect. I think everyone looks at Facebook and they see things. If their friends like it, they'll go and watch it. Yeah, I mean, I got great memories of Dumb and Dumber, because we bought that at script stage, and that really worked. We paid a lot of money for it at the time, and we bought that from a company called New Line. And at that time, they sold packages to us and to entertainment at that time, and that one we had to buy 9 other films just to get that one film. But that one film delivered in the end, and it was quite good fun to work on. Things like Misery was a great film to work on. I mean, Kathy Bates came to the UK, and she was a fantastic person to work with. And then Buster, I spent a week travelling the UK and Ireland with Phil Collins, doing screenings and meeting people, meeting the general public. So those kind of things are great good fun. I mean, in 1987 when I did Dirty Dancing, I had Patrick Swayze in the UK, but obviously he'd only done North and South, this American TV show, so no one knew who he was. I couldn't even get arrested with him. But you then went on to become a big star. I mean, one of the films I remember fondly is a film called Twice in a Lifetime, which we released most probably at Miracle Films. I think it was 1983, about 84 most probably, and Gene Hackman was in the UK shooting Superman 4 at Pinewood, and I managed to contact him because he was the star of my movie, and he was a real gentleman. He was staying in a hotel in Piccadilly, and I spoke to him and said, would he stay for 2 or 3 more days and work on my film, and he agreed to, and I said, I'd pay for his flight, pay for his hotel and everything, which was fine. And I went to the hotel. He was a really nice person. I went to the hotel to check him out, and he'd already gone and paid the hotel bill. So he was just a real gentleman. But internationally, it's kind of the same as the UK, but it's different in terms of, they'll want to change the artwork. Certain genre. I mean, horror works everywhere. Comedies, can be very subtle in different territories. Cinemas have changed completely digitally. There are very few 35mm projectors left. The ones that are left are really mainly with some of the independents. The smaller cinemas, which are still 35, are going to struggle, and therefore they have to show them off either DVD, but preferably Blu-ray. But digital has made life much easier. But obviously, you've still got films don't always ingest properly. You know, films arrive late at cinemas sometimes because of transport issues, and then you also got the virtual print fees you have to deal with as well. Where you have to do a deal with the cinema or the supplier of the digital equipment at the cinema to pay the VPF fees, which are quite expensive. But obviously the film works. It's not such a major issue. If the film only plays for a week, you've still got these expensive fees to pay. And then obviously you've got, you know, all the new digital platforms like Blinkbox, BT Vision, Netflix. It's not quite at the moment yet there, hasn't overtaken the DVD market. I would say another 3 or 4 years it will do. I mean, I think the key thing is to work with people that you can trust and rely on. There's lots of sharks in this business, in any business. So I think if you can find the right people to talk to first and work with, then that's a big plus. I would say getting into distribution is very, very difficult. I mean, a lot of people try and distribute films on their own and have done, but in many cases they eventually come to me or another competitor of mine in the business for help, because it's not, everyone thinks it's easy, but it's not. And it's all about relationships.